figured he was simply leading a scared refugee toward refuge, until she peered into his gaze and requested him to become her partner. From a blade clutched in her quivering fingers to affection blooming in her courageous soul, their path altered it all. For additional heartfelt Frontier Tales, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stick around until the close. And hey, while we're wandering these dusty trails together, where are you listening from today? Drop it in the comments. Utah Badlands, a cozy cabin in Colorado? All right, let's begin. The moon dangled low above the jagged mesas of southern Utah, throwing elongated silver streaks across the creek's edge where Jacob Hale had pitched his tent for the evening. His stallion nibbled peacefully, the flames snapping just sufficiently to soften the gloom. Jacob wasn't anticipating any issues, merely the typical far-off yip of jackrabbits. But then there drifted a murmur of motion, a faint grind of gravel beneath naked soles. Jacob's fingers halted midway toward his canteen. He raised his head gradually, his instincts honing as a shadow detached from the obscurity, illuminated dimly by the blaze's amber flicker. From the dusk emerged a youthful lady, her locks woven snugly and her strides cautious, almost hesitant. Her garments were ragged, grime coating her flesh as though she had traversed leagues of arid land without pause. In her shaking grasp, she gripped a modest etching dagger, its edge snaring the glow. Jacob's breath constricted. He reflexively lifted his palms, indicating he intended no injury. The lady's torso heaved and sank irregularly, terror quaking her form. But an element in her stare anchored him there, observing, anticipating. Her look wasn't frantic or hostile. It was injured, yearning. Jacob knew that expression. He had glimpsed it in the gazes of bewildered colts, in those who endured tempests, in folks who sensed they fit nowhere anymore. She regarded him like one who desired not to wound him, yet was prepared to if fate left her no option. Jacob's fire crackled, hurling a cinder skyward, and for an instant her hold clenched around the dagger. He addressed her tenderly, even as a serene gust. "It's okay. I won't stir." The blade trembled in her clasp, her limb slackening. She gulped deeply, mouth parched and tone brittle as she murmured, "I don't wish to clash." Her speech was halting, but her intent rang true. She hadn't arrived to plunder him or assail. She was there because every other path had vanished. Jacob eased his hands downward bit by bit, inclining his head deliberately. "You needn't," he uttered. "No peril here." The phrases seemed to unravel a knot within her. She advanced another pace nearer the fire, the heat touching her chilled frame. The blaze reflected in her eyes, revealing a profounder sorrow beneath her dread. Her respiration caught as she raised her chin and breathed the reality. "My settlement! Bandits arrived!" She batted her lashes swiftly, battling recollections, her timber fracturing. "All aflame! I fled! I fled till my limbs failed!" Jacob felt a sharp pang in his breast. In these parts, bandits offered no quarter. He grasped what horrors she must have beheld to bolt into the wasteland solitary. The edge sagged as her limb at last surrendered. She dropped to her haunches, weariness devouring her vigor. Jacob shifted deliberately, akin to nearing a timid wild filly. He delved into his pack and drew forth a water skin, proffering it softly. She wavered, scrutinizing him, gauging if his benevolence was genuine. Her fingers graced the skin, and she recoiled as if bracing for it to be snatched back. But Jacob remained still. Only after long moments did she claim it wholly, lifting it through her mouth with unsteady fingers. She sipped too hastily at first, hacking amid swallows. Jacob lingered mute, granting her space, allowing her to sense security in her own time. When she at last set down the skin, her inhalations evened. She eyed him once more, this instance with diminished alarm, more intrigue, more optimism. Jacob motioned to the far bank of the fire. "You may rest. You're secure here."
The lady shifted her view from him to the blaze, then to the murk trailing her. After a beat, she progressed and settled warily, dagger yet in her hold but no longer aimed his way. Jacob extended a strip of jerked beef, snapping it mildly lest she feel daunted. She received it with a subtle dip of her head, gnawing thoughtfully, as if every morsel recalled her vitality. The quiet that ensued wasn't strained, it was tender, like a fragile thread commencing to weave betwixt them. Jacob regarded her kindly, marking the soil streaked over her jaw, the gashes on her limbs, the manner she kept darting looks toward the gloom, as though dreading the ordeal she'd fled might reemerge. "You're secure," he echoed gently. She shut her lids, permitting the assurance to seep inward. For the initial occasion, she beheld him sans recoil. Her regard bore something fresh, something unforeseen by them both. Confidence, subtle and quivering, a link forged not through speech, but from the plain verity that he had extended mercy when she had braced for menace. Jacob perceived a stir within his own core, too, something elusive to label. Perhaps it stemmed from how she observed him, or the fortitude it demanded for her to weather her trials. Whichever it was, it embedded profoundly in his torso. As the flames snapped and the barren twilight enveloped them, Jacob comprehended one certainty. This wasn't merely an outsider seeking haven. This marked a pivot, one destined to redirect their existences. She had approached him bearing a dagger in her fist, but the instant her stare mellowed, Jacob discerned the essence. She bore something vastly mightier than alarm or urgency. She bore a hushed, wordless entreaty for haven, for kinship, perchance even for tomorrow. And defying reason, he discovered himself yearning to furnish it. By dawn, the chill, barren gust mellowed to a mild zephyr, whispering through the secluded mesa Jacob had selected for respite. The ascending orb daubed amber over the rock faces, and Mira stood serene by his flank, absorbing the sanctuary absent for days. She at length shared her name, Mira, her timber firm, her trepidation gradually waning. As they ventured, she noted his bearing, watchful, tender, attuned to each rustle. When peril stirred in the scrub, he spurred forth unhesitatingly, and when she faltered, he regarded her not as a load, but as one deserving safeguard. Through the trek, Jacob observed how her gait grew surer, how the gloom of dread in her eyes commenced to dissipate, supplanted by a firmer light. He caught himself peering rearward at her oftener than planned. Mira, though reserved, embodied a resilience he esteemed. Each wound, each echo of bereavement had molded her without shattering her. At times, when she presumed he wasn't noting, she examined him likewise, eyeing how he steered his mount or how he surveyed the crests for hazard. Amidst them, an unvoiced warmth burgeoned, delicate and warm as morning rays. And as these two souls draw closer across the endless horizon, I can't help but wonder, where are you listening from right now? Maybe under a starry sky like theirs, or from a far-off city dreaming of the wild. Share that with us below.
Upon attaining a cluster of juniper boughs, the refreshing umbrage enfolded them like a soothing coverlet. Jacob aided her dismount tenderly, tendering hydration prior to minding the steeds. Mira forbore from seating at once. Rather, she regarded him, truly regarded him, as if etching the contour of the fellow who had strode alongside through grit, peril, and hush. Jacob sensed her scrutiny, looked up, and offered a faint grin. It aimed to seem offhand, but an aspect in her gaze prolonged it beyond his intent. Mira drew a leisurely breath, her digits grazing the pommel of the dagger now sheathed snugly at her hip, no longer hoisted in fright. "Jacob," she uttered softly. He pivoted to her, startled by the fresh resolve in her tone. She quivered no more. She wandered not. She rose erect, posture squared, as though reclaiming her stake in existence. The valor in her eyes prompted Jacob to align himself.
intuiting her forthcoming words bore profound import to her. "You preserved my existence," she commenced, the utterance laden not solely with thanks, but with profundity. Jacob parted his lips to dismiss it humbly, yet she elevated her palm softly, halting him. "Yet that's not the reason I selected you." Selected? The term struck him abruptly. Jacob blinked, striving to decipher her intent. Selected him for protection? For aid? For direction? He couldn't fathom. His pulse thrummed fiercely as he inquired, "Selected me? For what?" The Misa lapsed into stillness, poised for her reply. Mira advanced nearer, each gesture purposeful. The strain betwixt them hung balmy in the ether, weighty with import. Her eyes bore no barrier now, no dread or bewilderment, merely a serene assurance unseen till then. Her palm lightly caressed the scabbard of her dagger, as if recalling her evolution from the quaking figure by the flays. Then she elevated her sight to his. "For my tomorrow," she breathed, the phrase devoid of doubt. "For my ally, for the soul I entrust with my being and my essence." Ere he could respond, she drew yet nearer. So proximate Jacob could discern her respirations, could perceive the gentleness in her countenance, the openness she ventured solely to him. Her timbre sank to a murmur, confidential and bold. "I desire you as my partner." Jacob felt time dilate. The declaration arose not from exigency, it sprang from volition, from resolution, from loyalty. An inner barrier yielded at the epiphany that she proffered him a role in her world not from fright, but from fondness, from conviction. Jacob remained immobile, not from reluctance. He yearned for her more intensely than foreseen, but because the juncture seemed hallowed, grander than them both. He recalled the eve she materialized with a faltering dagger, aghast and isolated. He pondered her bravery, her drive to endure, her subdued endurance. Somewhere twixt the arid eves and endless trails, she had transcended mere need. She had evolved into the lady his spirit pursued, even prior to his awareness of the pursuit. Ere he could muster apt phrases, Mira extended upward, laying her palm softly upon his breast. Her fingers poised just over his pulse, sensing its accelerated cadence. "Your heart," she breathed, "utters ere your lips." A timid curve grazed her mouth, yet her eye stayed valiant. Jacob felt fervor surge through him, wonder, fondness, affinity. He enfolded her hand with his, sensing the suppleness of her dermis, the firmness of her caress. In that unadorned touch, all he sensed at last gained lucidity. He no longer merely aided her, he elected her as well. Jacob inclined his head faintly, brow grazing hers, and sighed, "Mira, I never aimed to tumble for you, but somewhere on the trail I did." Her eyes gleamed and she inclined toward him, permitting solace, warmth, and aspiration to cascade over her faces. Then she whispered, "We elect one another." The juniper limbs sighed aloft as if agreeing, the breeze interlacing their vow into the Misa's sigh. Jacob encircled her with his arms tenderly, drawing her into the most secure clasp she had ever savored, and as she nestled her crown against his breast, he discerned his days had transformed eternally. If this tale of unexpected bonds touched your heart, hit that like button, share it with a fellow dreamer, and subscribe for more whispers from the wild. Until next time, keep chasing those horizons.